Hey guys, it's Shaz here with another update. I'm actually here with Hudah Budah out of Chicago. Hudah
Hudah
Budah.
here.
So today we kind of hooked up and decided to do a video kind of talking about today's events. I don't want to say a lot going on. There's been a lot going on every day. So maybe what made today different was that some of what was going on was kind of in my backyard, right? That was kind of what separated today from other days.
I would say so. And let me say that your day began almost with a panic. I mean, on my end, I'm almost waking up with information from you that, hey, I think coronavirus is here. Like, check this out. Did you hear about this?
Yeah, you know what? You're totally right. So obviously, both of us have been looking into this. I don't want to say since the beginning, but end of December, beginning of January for sure. So we've discussed it. So I've got my morning routine, if you will, of 3 minutes of checking out updates. That's what a lot of people are doing right now because we're not getting good information. I was going through a Twitter thread, and there was an article about something in San Diego, and in that thread, somebody said something like, check this out, and it was a YouTube video. I listened to it, and it's a caller calling into Dr. Paul Cottrell's voicemail. I think he's out of New York City. I'm not familiar with him, but this caller was specifically talking about confirmed. His wife is a nurse, I believe, at a hospital nearby me in Buffalo, and was saying that there were confirmed corona cases. It was odd. He was saying there were negative cases and there were positive cases. When he said the name of the hospital, specifically Millard Fillmore, my stomach went to my throat. It was like that feeling of you kind of wait for that feeling, right? Oh my gosh, this is real. My kids go to the school directly next to Millard Fillmore, so it felt very real. I sent you the link. You were like, "Oh my gosh!" And I think I said, "I'm going down there."
Yeah, I hadn't heard of it. It was like, what do we do? What do you do with something like this? And like you said, yeah, you decided rather quickly, like, I'm going to go. Like,
yeah,
we see all this information online. We've been getting information out of China, and all of it, we're so confused about. Is this real? It's so insane. It's so crazy. Could that be real? And here's the opportunity to have something like that come up so close to home where you can actually validate it. And that's the one piece we've been missing throughout. We see all of these videos, we get all this information, but we don't get validation on any of it.
You're completely right. So this was the first thing in the last 6 weeks, 7 weeks. This was the first thing as we're, vetting information, trying to decide with some degree of logic what we think is real, what's not, what's conspiracy, what's not. This was something that I felt, well, this is a mile from my house. Maybe I can just go see if something is different. I didn't even know what I might be looking for, other than I thought, okay, if I saw an enhanced, let's say, police presence, if I saw, maybe an entrance that was kind of not quarantined, but corridored.
Like what we see in the pictures coming out of China. You see a lot of plastic. You see people maybe in a hazmat suit, and like you said, police presence, which you did mention you saw police there, but probably typical for an emergency room type environment, I would guess.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought, okay, maybe if I go inside, I'll see something that looks different than a normal emergency room. So I did. I went down there. I had an N95 mask, which probably, we don't know if that's actually going to do anything. And I had nitrile gloves on. I went in, felt kind of weird, but walked into the emergency room. Nothing was out of order. There was nobody in there, actually. There was the triage nurse, which I didn't see her until I actually walked down the first floor corridors past the lab. I was surprised I could just walk past the lab. That struck me as odd. Like, okay, if there was something serious going on, I don't think the lab would be super accessible.
Right.
I walked past there to this area where there's a Tim Hortons. I walked around there. There were people there, a security guard, a kind of a front desk attendant. Nobody was wearing a mask. Nothing seemed out of order. It seemed like any casual day in a suburban hospital. Walked back past the lab again into the emergency room, saw the intake nurse who was wearing a mask, hung out there for a second, walked back past the lab to the Tim Hortons almost to check it again. And I kept looking through windows and down hallways to see if I would see anything that seemed off. The fourth time I walked past the lab, the window was open and there was somebody there in a white coat. He was mid 50s, early 60s. And I just thought, you know what, let me just ask him if there's anything, if they've been testing for coronavirus. He kind of looked at me and he said, no, you know what, we don't have a virology lab here. So we would have to send something off. But to his knowledge, it wasn't even any concern of his. Certainly did not seem like within the last 2 weeks, let alone within the last week, that they had even encountered anything that would make them think, okay, we need to be wearing masks in the lab. We need to wear gloves. I have heard, you know, as I posted my video on YouTube, a lot of comments that I saw from, I don't want to say conspiracy theorists, but people who just completely think that, you know, this is being hidden, that there's gag orders. If that were true, it would be really difficult, in my opinion, to get everybody
there. If there's a gag order in place and people that you're interacting with seem to know something, but they just can't tell you, they're phenomenal actors if that's the case, right? So, but all in all, it felt normal, like completely normal to you, I think, right?
Completely normal. Like there was nothing different about it today. Keep in mind, I'm a bit of a skeptic myself. I'm not one of these people that just thinks, oh, our government tells us the truth and everything they say is real. I absolutely have
the opposite of that. I mean, the opposite. I believe nothing. I'm still convinced I believe the virus is here and all around us. I believe that, but I'm going to need some proof if I'm really going to lay into it.
Yeah, exactly. So I posted the first video of Millard Fillmore, and then later in the day, I decided to go down to DeGraff Memorial. And when I went there, I again, nobody in the waiting room. I was wearing a mask. I didn't want to go in there and just pepper the security guard with questions. So I sat in the waiting room for, I think, about 10 minutes before I kind of struck up a real casual conversation. Super nice guy. He actually works at both hospitals. And I specifically said, do you know, have you been dealing with the coronavirus at all here? Something to that effect. And he's like, no, not at all. I think I even asked him, like, do you think people are overreacting? And he said, yes. I don't think somebody under a gag order, I don't think would have just that easily said that. I think they would have been a little bit more hidden with their info, maybe said nothing at all. But they're definitely, it definitely did not give the appearance at that hospital that they had encountered anything either, considering the triage nurse was not wearing a mask, which at Millard Fillmore she was. The security guard, who is the first person you would come into contact with walking through the emergency room doors, was not wearing any PPE, and neither was the registration nurse. So again, it was the second place.
So no matter where you went, though, no cause for concern. It didn't, like anywhere, it didn't sound like. And I was on the phone with you for parts of it, your first trip out, and everything seemed normal. Everything sounded normal that I was hearing. I heard your questions, which were great questions. A lot of them were to the point, but it was great, you know, because you ask them in such a way that people are willing to, you know, offer up information, and I could hear in their voices, not they were hiding something. There just wasn't anything there. So it was good that you went out and checked. I know there was some concern and panic online. We saw that from replies to those tweets, and on that YouTube video, a lot of comments, and people weren't sure until you went out there. So thanks for that.
Yeah.
That's very helpful. You inspired me actually, because you know, as you were going out to those hospitals, I was thinking, well, why can't I do the same thing? And for various reasons, I can't do the exact same thing today, but it would be great to get down to the hospitals in Chicago, down in the city, and find out what's going on, because We've recently heard that these hospitals in Chicago, in New York City, in Los Angeles, in Seattle, they're going to begin testing if you come in with flu-like symptoms. And so I thought, hey, if I can't go to a hospital today, I can at least do some info gathering still. So I called a local hospital. I'm in the Chicago suburbs, so I called a hospital somewhere a little more, excuse me, rural, and it was interesting. It's as if they, kind of weren't ready for a question about that. It didn't sound as if there was a process in place. And after being put on hold and transferred, they just came back with saying, if you came in, we would call the CDC hotline. There's an 800 number, an 888 number, which they actually provided, and they would have ended up calling that number to get the procedures on what to do next. So while I was thinking there was a process in place or that they could test themselves there, that didn't seem to be the case yet, at least, out in the suburbs. But decided to also call a couple of city hospitals. So Mercy Hospital and I believe U Medicine, Chicago. And the story was a little different, although nothing concerning. They did sound like they had a process in place, which would make sense to me. I think the first cases of coronavirus in the United States was in Chicago, I believe, at least the first case. So it wouldn't surprise me that they do have a process in place already here and that they've already enacted it, used this process. The questions I was asking to gather information, I mentioned that I had been feverish. That I just wasn't sure with the, having some symptoms, also having contact with somebody who had been to China and recently returned like third week or so of January. Would it make more sense to go to a local ER up here or go down to the city where they may be prepared for it? So that was the way I was trying to phrase things to just try to get a truthful answer from them about where to go. And universally, from the small hospital in this town to the big city hospitals, the answer was, in the city, you're going to wait 24 hours or a little bit, bit longer to be seen. And what they can do out in the suburbs, those hospitals, they'll be doing the same thing really as far as your treatment. They will, they'll ask for your symptoms if you are in contact with somebody. If they take a test, they're going to send it off to a state facility. Nothing sounded like they were alarmed, too concerned with somebody who had been in contact with somebody from China who was symptomatic. There's just not a lot of panic. And I guess that's reassuring on one hand, but that's not enough info for me because, my baseline here, and this, and as people watch videos coming up, they're going to see the baseline here is the assumption that what happened in China, it is very possible for that to happen here. And at this stage, that's kind of our next level, is that if it's been incubating here for a bit, the next level is for it to turn into what happened there. So, we saw the videos coming out of China. They stopped for some reason, and I wish I knew why. People disappeared over these videos, or maybe nothing's going on there anymore, but I find that hard to believe. I kind of wonder if they've cut the internet off over there. I believe that's been done before, but the point there is that people did go out to seek information. We haven't seen them again. It was incredibly brave of them to do that. I don't know. I don't know how else we're going to get information other than us, all of us, you, me, the public, us going out and getting information together and sharing that information. And so, at least for me, this is the start of that. I think it's important. And we need help with that.
I totally agree. There are benchmarks that I'm sure all of us have set in our minds to decide, like, when is this something of serious concern? Like when this happens, this is when I'm going to do X. I think some baselines, like I followed John Williams. I know you have as well. The doctor puts out great videos of facts. Event Horizon, EV Defender at EV Defender has for weeks shown statistics. He's a math genius, it seems, and he's showing using a quadratic equation how he's been able to predict the numbers to a very small percentile every evening. So I think as we go forward, we would like to present daily videos where we can at least discuss facts. And that's the biggest thing. We want facts. Facts are tough right now. Today, I can't even say what I accomplished was factual, but it was at least some visual evidence to draw a potential conclusion. The one thing I didn't like about the caller, and it's no offense to him, talking about the caller to Dr. Paul Cottrell, if that's how you say his name, nothing against the caller. I don't know the validity of what he said, but third-hand information is not necessarily the best. Second-hand information might be something we have to contend with, because a lot of us aren't going to get first-hand info. But to say, like in his case, what struck me as concerning was it was potentially his wife that was in the hospital. And you know what, as a healthcare worker, I think that's awesome. I'm not dogging that. If what they're saying.
Let's in the description of this video will be a link to the phone call, to the voicemail that really kicked this all off, that got you and I interested, or really kind of lit a fire and made us want to go out and seek some information ourselves here.
And I want to be super clear. She's a healthcare worker, and I think that is awesome. I was prior service Coast Guard. I believe in serving the public, and I think healthcare workers are kind of our front line. That being said, if what she's saying is true, thank you. But it's hard when you're getting, I believe when I heard more detail, because he came out later with an interview, I think directly with her, but you can't tell because she's in a disguise. So I don't know that she was somebody who administered tests. From what I remember, she was recounting the story of somebody she knew or had heard that somebody did this. And then she's telling her husband, who is then relaying it to a doctor. And it's like the game of telephone. You can really lose vital info as you go down the line. So I'm hoping as we provide facts that I'm not saying we're not going to be able to provide secondhand info, because that's probably going to be a lot of what we do provide. And we're going to do the best we can to vet it. But I do want to be cautious that we present any, third party accounts, because that can be highly suspect.
And I think a way we can separate that is as we do daily updates of numbers and other pieces of news, that there are multiple references that we can, or sources we can reference in the description, just things we can prove. As we come across stories like the phone call today, we can dedicate a separate video on just that topic, and we can discuss the ins and outs of it and the conspiracy theory parts of it, and what about it is factual. So we can keep these kind of things a little more lightweight. It's hard to say that with a circumstance like this, but more on point, more factual. And let's certainly open up the conversation to all of these different ideas. Let's talk about prepping. Let's teach people how to prep, why to prep, what you're prepping for. Let's dive into an idea like, what if there are hospitals full of people right now? What if we just saw, the cover up? Who knows? It's worth discussing. All of it is, because we're not getting enough data anywhere else.
Yeah, and to your point about prepping, I think at the least something we should leave people with is that we are not prepping for avoiding the coronavirus. That is not what this is about. What you're prepping is for the fallout from a coronavirus pandemic. You're prepping for supply chains to be broken. And I think it's important. A lot of people think prepping, oh, you're prepping for, to not catch it. You have no control over that. You are prepping for breaks in the supply chain. And having been to disaster zones, and this, I've seen people who are without water and without food. And most people in America have not. Aside from people who may have helped out in Katrina, most people, and we're not referring to somebody who goes hungry for an evening. We're talking about there is no food, there is no water. So we're prepping for those kind of things. And we're talking some basic essentials, like making sure that you have water. We're not talking a gallon. There's nothing wrong with having at least, at the very least, a 1 week supply of food and water for your family.
It's such a complicated topic. It is. That should be our very next video, is prepping. I think above all else, forget all of the other information, what's true, what's not true. We just know something is out there. Let's assume it's not going to get us. We're not going to be affected with it the same way, but that there's a tiny chance. Then let's go with that tiny chance. And we're going to show you how not scary prepping actually is. It doesn't take a lot of effort or money, and you're not crazy to just prepare for that little chance. You're not going to regret it. You're not going to feel crazy. You're going to see how normal it actually is, and how many other areas in your life you do prep for. You're a prepper. You already are one. So let's just do it a new way for something different that we don't normally think about, but that we should. So
Absolutely.
I almost feel like, just as an introduction, this is a good place to leave it. This is us. This is something new we want to do. We want to go investigate. We want to share information, but it's very important that we ask for your help as well. If there's a hospital nearby that you wouldn't mind, sticking your nose in somebody else's business, really just go in the hospital, check out the waiting room, ask some questions if they have a process. If somebody has a fever, if you're not comfortable going to a place, make a couple phone calls. I mean, that was hard enough for me to actually think through, where to call, what numbers. With my anxiety, that can get a little hard, but I did it, no problem. It's not a hard thing to do, to pick up a phone call if you don't want to go somewhere in person, maybe because you're actually worried about getting sick. That's a legit concern. Pick up the phone and just ask a couple questions, and report that back. You can put it in our comments. We also have a Discord, so look in the video description for a link to the Discord. The idea is going to be to grow that so we can facilitate discussion about this topic right now. But whatever the next topic is, and we know there will be a next topic, let's keep talking. It shouldn't begin and end with the start and stop of a video and the date that the comment sections get stale. It's no, let's talk about stuff every day, big stuff, little stuff. But this is the stuff that matters, and there needs to be a platform for us to communicate with each other and get each other in life.
I completely agree. And the last thing I want to add is, in whatever capacity you help, in whatever capacity you try to potentially reach out to hospitals or look for information, we do need to be kind to each other. It does us, it will do a great deal now and in the future for us to maintain the human spirit and keep things kind. I think that goes a long way. If you're going to ask somebody a question, don't get in their face. Don't pepper them with info. Don't call them a liar. Just be kind. People are a lot more forthcoming with info if they don't feel threatened. So it was awesome chatting with you. Hope everybody likes the video, and there'll be more to come.
More to come. We'll see you tomorrow.
See ya.